What is it you want to do before you die, and what impact and legacy you want to leave?
People don't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel.
If you think about a cemetery, how many good ideas are currently lying down in a cemetery?
We're not guaranteed tomorrow.
What does it look like for you going forward?
I don't believe anything happens by coincidence.
Let's hope that this inspires others to leave a better legacy.
I have a gratitude alarm that goes off every day.
Imagine knowing exactly how many days you have left to live. Not theoretically, but actually. Would that change the way that you interact with your environment, with your loved ones, with your workplace? Would you change how you behave? The values that you impart on the people you love? Well, that's kind of the topic of conversation for today. We're discussing the theme Before I Die. Before I Die is a phenomenon that's been taking the world by storm. It's an art project challenging people to really think about it. Well, before I die, what is it that I still want to do? But that feels a bit too much in the future. So I'm speaking to Wayne today, who has made it his life's mission to help people determine what legacy they want to leave, starting today. So, Wayne, where were we?
Marco, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited to have this conversation today. You know, it's so serendipitous for us to have this conversation because I just the other day had a intensely deep conversation with an individual who's considered the root of assisted suicide.
Oh, no way.
It was enlightening. And the reason I say this is because the way that he chose to do this, or is choosing to do this, because he hasn't done it yet, is called VSET, which is Voluntary Stopping Eating and Drinking, which takes about 10 to 14 days for it to actually take into effect and end your life. It's fundamentally the only way to legally do it without it being recognized as suicide. It's a unique topic, a unique conversation, and we don't have to get into that story. Yeah. But it was quite serendipitous that our theme of today, which is Before I Die, closely related to that conversation.
Yeah, so is the relation as far as like or theoretically they're planning, I will be dead in 15, 16, 17 days. Yeah. And so it's like, now what I want to do with these last...
So he's spent 10 years working on this program. So basically 10 years ago, he got to a point in his life and he realized he's lived a complete life and he's happy, he's satisfied. And he wants to make space for the next generations. Okay. So he then spent 10 years going to psychologists, trying to get understanding whether is he maybe depressed. Didn't happen to be the case. They all came back clear. He doesn't have any health issues. He's about 60, turning 70 now. And he doesn't have any dependents, and he just feels like he's lived a complete life. And that's what makes it so interesting.
That is super interesting. That's an individual I would love to talk to, right? Because it sounds like, especially if he's gotten like testing and like he's clinically not depressed, it sounds like he's like reached like ultimate fulfillment.
Well, that's it. That was the conversation I was trying to get with him. And this is why the angle that I took, because I read his book, and he specifically left out the angle of religion. And I was wondering why that was the case. And I wanted to press him on that. And when I was doing a bit of a deep dive, and I was using the Bible actually at the time to see, like, can I try catch him out? Can I try kind of poke at his philosophical worldview or his religious worldview? I actually was quite surprised to find out how often the Bible mentions we should be thinking about our mortality, and we gain wisdom from that, which is, I think from our conversation today, people will notice it. And there were two main quotes that struck out at me. And the one was, to teach us to number our days, that we may gain the heart of wisdom. And like numbering our days means every single day we're thinking about a day has gone by, I'm closer to the end. Yeah. So how am I living that day? And the second one was, the heart of the wise is in the house of the mourning, but the heart of the fool is in the house of pleasure. And that always gives me that YOLO vibe. People think about YOLO, you only live once. It's like, yeah, but you're thinking about today, but you should be thinking about how much time you have left. Yeah.
That second piece, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, and the heart of the fool is in the house of pleasure.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, and then the first quote as well, I related directly to. A lot of people have heard of memento mori, right? If you're familiar, and meaning it's a Latin phrase that it's like, I too shall die, something like that, or I definitely butchered it for everybody that's watching, but that's the concept, right? And if we can realize that life is absolutely fleeting, we need to make the most out of it today. That gives us the wisdom to understand that we're not guaranteed tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be here. And then it's an absolute gift, right? So we better make the most of our time here today. Whereas like, I think the fool is right taking pleasure in like, oh, there's, it doesn't matter. I'm here for forever. Like my choices that I make today literally don't matter. Like I can do whatever I want to. I can steal. I can be mean to people. I can lie. Whereas, well, if you realize that like you're not going to be here tomorrow, like your actions actually affect others and affect whatever you believe happens after death, right? Then, well, you better get pretty wise.
I'm really glad you said that because that ties into the idea of legacy, right? Legacy is what you leave on this earth. So like there's many angles to think about it because I was ideating, what does legacy really mean? Because I knew we were going to be talking today. And I know you got the philosophical side. It's existential. What is legacy? And then you got the sociological side, which is what you were talking about. Your actions today, your values you impart on your families, maybe your children, like that is actually a legacy you leave behind in the values that you impart. But just to give us some context regarding before I die and this phenomena that's been taking on the art world, or people challenging people to think about it a bit. Like, what is it you want to do before you die, and what impact and legacy you want to leave? I could also be wrong. For me, the self or like thinking about your mortality and leaving a legacy, they're very interconnected. So I was wondering, do you see them differently? How do you feel about them both?
No, I feel that they're super interconnected. And how I see legacy in this piece is that because of the mortality could be tomorrow, we're busy leaving our legacy today. We can't be thinking about it as this thing that is in the future, right? Oh, when I die, I'll have wanted to accomplish X and Y and Z. It's if you die today, what's this legacy you're leaving behind? The term legacy, I think for most people, I work with tons of business professionals, and like in my podcast as well, when I talk about legacy, sometimes people talk about money, but not that much. But either way, legacy, a lot of times people think it's the money they're leaving behind. But to me, it's a lot of the emotions you leave behind. There's a quote that says, people don't remember what you did, they remember how you made them feel. And so a piece of my legacy is when I'm walking down the street, I'm smiling at strangers. And that smile is going to ripple into their day-to-day, which is going to ripple into the people that they interact with. And all of a sudden, it's not like this thing that I can write down and put this big accomplishment plaque up on the wall. But like the way that we just act day to day, that is like the legacy that like we're leaving. That's how we're going to be remembered and how we're going to have like impacted this world. And so we got to think about mortality, right? Because it could happen today.
I really like what you said. Not about pushing your legacy to, okay, in the future, what legacy would I have left behind? It's like, what is it today? Because if you challenge someone, think about what is it today, the legacy you've left behind, then you'll immediately make it personal. And the question is, well, then, okay, well, what have I left behind? If you push it to the future, my future self will deal with it. It is a future marker that can figure that out and leave a legacy. And I also like the fact that we don't make it financial. Financial is like an easy one, That's the obvious capitalist mindset. Okay, what am I leaving for my inheritance? And that is obviously important. But I think for this conversation, that to me is an easy cop-out.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think that's like the obvious underlying. Yes, we all want to leave our kids and our family and our friends money when we leave, right? All of us want to create generational wealth, even if it's just in the back of our head, because 99% of people aren't going to put in the effort needed.
No.
But the piece that's not the cop-out, that's like, well, how are you acting today that people are going to remember? And so, yeah, we gotta think about it as like an active thing, not that future, like put it off until someday. Huh?
How do you challenge someone to do that? What is your approach?
Well, talking about mortality actually is a pretty great way to think about it, right? That it isn't a future. It's what you do day in and day out is the legacy that you're creating. And so my company is called Journey to Legacy, right? And so I focus pretty heavy on that journey piece, meaning that it's happening every single day, right? And so it's not just the end, it's the day-to-day actions that make the real difference. But here's a pretty fun exercise, actually, that I do with a lot of people. It's to think about your obituary. I like to think about it in like newspapers, how it was like back in the day, because I don't know what modern obituaries are specifically like.
Now it's probably via email.
Yeah.
Or some online.
Exactly, a forum, something like that. But the concept is essentially, right, that it's like a little picture of the person, and it says like, Wayne Veldsman died today. He lived these years. He was known for X, Y, and Z, accomplished A, B, C. Mm-hmm. And so, like, if we can think to ourselves, like, what's the obituary that I want to have written about myself? And then write 2 different ones. Picture yourself on your deathbed in, 80 years, or you're 90 years old. You're dead. Now think back, like, what do you want to be known for? Mm-hmm. And don't just think about just your business accomplishments. Add that in there too, sure. But, like, how did you make people feel? What were the emotions that you invoked in others, the emotions you evoked in yourself? And then also write one for today. So if I die today, what would my obituary say? And then if you can compare those two, I mean, you just outlined the exact actions that you need to take for the rest of your life. You need to start taking today to create that difference from where you are now, your obituary of today, to where your obituary will be when you die, hopefully at 90 years old.
That's intense. I mean, how long does the average person take to do this?
Not that long, honestly. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could sit here with you right now for the next 5 minutes, and I could basically help you outline this exact obituary, right? Just going through, what are you working on now? What's like the business that you want to accomplish?
Let's do it. Let's actually, why not do that? Let's see what that looks like. Okay,
sweet. Let's see how long it takes.
I'll say the reason I'm really keen on doing this is because something that's really important to me and how I make big decisions is I think about my mortality. So I call it my front porch theory.
Nice.
Where I got my grandkids and I'm telling them my story and like what is the better story that I'd like to tell them. So like oftentimes you find yourself at a point where you're scared to do something, it feels uncomfortable. I'm like, well, is this a story that I'd like to tell them one day? Nice. And if it is, I do it, regardless of how I feel about it. So that's why this I'm very intrigued to do. So
the front porch theory, I like that a lot also, right? I mean, so let's start there, right? So you're 101. Mm-hmm. You're sitting there with your grandkids. You've accomplished everything in your entire life. So let's think it through. Start us with business stuff, right? So we're in this mindset of you're writing your obituary. What are the business stuff you want to have accomplished?
One thing that's really important to me is that I leave. So, for example, we are in the supplement industry, and a huge issue with supplement industry it's just so inauthentic and it's just not trustworthy. Mm-hmm. I would love to leave a business where people are like, man, that company, I could trust them. Whatever they sell, I knew it's going to be good. They've thought about it and they've done the work. Mm. That would be a huge success for me because that's really what I think about all the time.
Nice. So trust. So business-wise, you want to build a company that is based around trust, right? That's actually helping people and the people know they're coming from a place of help.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So that's already a piece right there. It's like Marco was known as somebody that, had a lot of integrity, that could be trusted, and everything that he did in his life was centered around this piece of trust. Okay, so let's talk about your family, right? Okay. Like, do you want to have kids?
Yeah, I have a daughter.
You have a daughter. Okay, I didn't even realize. Perfect.
Yeah, no.
Right, nice. Okay, so you have a daughter, right? Like, how much time do you want to spend with your daughter? Like, what are some things that you want to have done with her in your life?
That's a great question. I think because she's almost 2 now. Her birthday's coming up, and having her, she's really challenged me, and it's shifted my priorities upside down. Where I was work. Yeah. She came into the world and suddenly I'm like, man, I need work-life balance.
Oh, there you go.
I want to spend time with her. I enjoy it so much. Nice. The relationship I would like with my kids, and I guess this sums it up with her specifically, and if I definitely want more. I know it was successful when they want to spend time with me when they're old.
Beautiful. Nice. I love that. It's so cool to hear that. Like, you immediately have already recognized the piece of you want to make sure your work is balanced. You can spend time with your loved ones, right? And with your daughter. And so that's another great piece that we're going to add there into your obituary, right? It's like the time that he spent with his family and the emotions he invoked at them caused others to be, drawn to him, wanting to spend time with him. Probably because you put so much time and effort into them.
Oh, that's actually really nice, yeah.
Right, that's another great one, right? And so then it's like, I like to go after that. It's like, okay, well, thinking about today, and this is a little bit tougher one, like what are some of like the teachings? Maybe think about your daughter. I know she's 2, but like, what are some of like the things that are most important to you? Maybe that either your parents taught you or that the education that you want to leave on this world.
Oh man, you're hitting great questions today. This is honestly, yeah. I mean, here's an example of something that stood out to me, and like this is something I'd love to impart. You have maybe a father and his daughter, two pictures. On the one version, they walk past someone who's homeless or sick, and he says to her, "Look, you need to go to school so you don't end up like that." All right, and then in the inverse, there's a guy that walks past and says, "Look, you need to go to school so you can help people like that."
Oh, beautiful.
I would love to be that angle. We can
Wow.
problem solve, and like we can fix things, and we can make things better. That's why it's also something I really love about the Japanese culture, which is leaving something better than how you found it.
Yeah.
That's a lovely principle I'd like to impart as one of the ones, you know.
That's such a great principle. Is that what like Ikigai is directly, or what is
I
that?
mean, it could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the word Ikigai I've definitely heard. It could
Of
be.
course.
It could very well be that.
I think it is. It's
ringing something.
Yeah, it's similar to that. And like, I definitely believe in that piece of the puzzle also, right? Leaving the world better than when we found it. And what a great picture that you just painted of like I'm thinking of like a little comic strip, right?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, that is like, okay, well, work really hard so you don't become like that, or work really hard so you can help those people.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the principles that you want to teach and leave behind also. And so, we'll leave it sort of just like that. And so you've now painted this picture. Then not once did you answer how much money you want to leave behind, right?
Yeah.
Your obituary, it probably will say, but
Yeah, it doesn't say this
it's not
person left a net worth of
focused.
XYZ,
No.
split 6 ways. Yeah, it doesn't
Correct,
say that. Yeah.
right? Like that's the piece, like you said, that's sort of the cop out, the assumption. It'll be in there that'll say like, because of his hard work and determination, he has left his family secure. But what's more important to you, right, is this integrity piece, right? The transparency of like the medical industry that you want to have built on trust. The amount of time you want to spend with your family, the emotions that you invoke in them, that they want to come to you. They're drawn like, I need to spend more time with dad, right? Or everybody in your life, I need to spend more time with Marco. And then this last piece of like, he left an idea and a concept and education of helping others, not just helping yourself.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty great obituary, a pretty great legacy.
And
that you're gonna
I can
leave.
totally understand that if you're looking at that every morning, as looking, this is the obituary. The question is, what actions am I taking today to lead me to this?
Yeah.
And I think about the one with, the one that you want to leave with your daughter, quality time, the one with your child.
Yeah.
I mean, I read a fact that if you were to sum up how much time you have on this earth and how you allocate it, it's quite easy to do. Because structurally, if you think about it, you spend almost 30% just sleeping. And then if you work out just the basic necessities, there's many models of doing this. If you think it's not able to do, just think about your life insurance, because your actuary has done it for you already.
Sure.
When they quote how much your life policy is worth. So this has been done, modeled, and easy to do. But fundamentally, if you think about how much time you spend with your child, or even you with your parent, I heard or I read that almost of the parent-child time spent together, when you're 18 and you leave the house, you would have spent 90% in total of that parent-time together. Meaning that when you're now past 18 and you're on your own and you're taking life by storm, every time you're with that person, you're with your family, just know that it is so little time left in total till that time is done. And I always wondered, I wish I knew that when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because that would have changed how I interacted with my parents when I was young. And now that I'm older, I'm really glad that I know that, because now every time I see them, I really try to get the most out of it, because I know that there's not much more time I have with them left.
Oh,
Just
that's so powerful.
It was, man. It's life-changing if you think about it.
Wow, it honestly makes me pretty emotional to think about it that way, right? Because I never heard that fact, or that roundabout fact of when you're out of the house, it's like 90% of all the time you would spend with them.
Yeah.
Right? There's this entrepreneur, his name is Jesse Itzler, and he talks about building your life resume. Two pieces of the puzzle is, one, he says think about your life and the amount of summers that you have left, right? I mean, I'm sitting here 31 years old. I plan to be 120. And so I got 90 summers left, right? To some people, 90 seems like a lot, but only 90 summers, right? Theoretically, only 90 summer vacations, 90 summer holidays.
Yeah.
That's not much. And then for people now, to take it to the parent piece, you're out of the house, right? You live somewhere else. I mean, me sitting here right now, I live in a different country on the other side of the world than my parents. I see them hopefully twice a year.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, right, it's not 90 because that's still when I die.
Yeah.
It's like, how much longer are they alive?
True.
20 years. And so 2 times, I only have 40 more times that I get to see them. Like,
Yeah.
essentially, like, I mean, what? That's less than 2 months if you think about it that way.
And if you track that time, so every time you go on that trip and now you take, 49 minus 1, that's not 39. So 40 minus 1 is 39 times. All right, now you go there 39 times. When you get there, how important are the small little fights you used to have with your parents? And like the stuff that you disagree about, the little quarrels, the things that make you, like how does that kind of all falls away because this is not important.
Yeah.
And you just think about what's actually important, which is the relationship and making great memories.
It's so true. I love that. It's super powerful. Like, I hope that sinks into everybody and realize that, like, I mean, I think hopefully parents and like kids, whichever one you are, send it to the other. Send this to your kid, send this to your parent, because if both parties can realize that, then they can let those little fights go, right?
Yes, I completely agree. I wanna get back into the legacy. So here's what I love about it. I read a book called Legacy. And it's probably one of the best books I've ever read. And I know as soon as I mention who wrote this book and who it was about, the nation of South Africa are going to mourn deeply. But it was a book about the All Blacks, which is the New Zealand rugby team, right? And as we know, objectively speaking, you need to know this, the New Zealand rugby team have been a dominant force for generations. And this book was about that. What is it that makes them so good for so long? Because it's unusual for a team to be so good for so many generations. And this book outlined what legacy means to the New Zealand people, but specifically to the rugby team.
Sure.
And what they call it is, it's called sweeping the sheds. And what sweeping the shed means is after they've played a rugby game, regardless if it's the World Cup final, if it's any game you could possibly imagine where they've won and they are living the high life, or one that they've lost and they're living the absolute low. When they go back to their locker room, the captain, the most famous player the most successful, doesn't matter, everyone sits and they clean it. And they leave it better than when they found it. Beautiful. So what it means is it keeps them humble and they're not bigger than the game. And that was one that stood out to me because there are so many, I mean, you think about athletes and you see the egos and you just know those guys, people are running around catering to their every need. Whereas here, it's not about them. It's about the team.
That's awesome.
And man, after sweeping the sheds,
Man, that's actually a really great way to think about things. It's like no matter what level of success you're reaching, right, to kind of make sure that you're staying humble, right? And that way you're always ready to get back at it. You want to get back to it. You don't believe that you have surpassed the best that there is, right? You've now hit this finish line to like keep coming back to it. Where do you think, I like the topic of humility sort of, like how can people in your mind become more humble and how will that actually sort of affect the rest of their lives?
Yeah, humility is a good question. I think it's quite topical at the moment with social media and how people try to portray themselves. I connect that to being grounded. So fundamentally, I would probably look to my faith as a way to say, I think I look at the overarching principle, which is do unto others as you would do unto yourself. And I try to put that as, that is obviously, they call it the golden rule, the golden principle. So if there's a rule that I try to think about continuously, that's the one that I think about. Or if I think about, like, I don't want to make this too religious, but if I think about what, often when you go, this is especially a reality if you go to a place like a third world or South Africa is a good example of it, where the inequality is so high. And then you would interact with individuals that you might not feel so safe, or you might feel like you are being harassed, or point is you're interacting with an environment that you feel uncomfortable with, right? And this might be unsafe. This is a crime capital area. I mean, that happens all the time. Knowing that, I think about when Jesus went to the people that he went to talk to, that he went to teach, or that he went to interact with. He didn't go to anyone that was in a place that was maybe safe or clean, or he went to the people, he went into the difficult areas,
Where it's
the places,
tough,
the places where
dangerous,
I go and I feel unsafe and I'm like, I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
That's where he went. So then I think about that a lot as to how I interact with my environment, thinking, man, oftentimes I'm prejudging people
Sure.
based on my own preconceived notions of what I think. And I need to take a step back and think about, no, I gotta treat these people with love and care. And when you do that, you automatically humble yourself.
So true. Man, talking about the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have others do unto you it's just such a great way to think about it, man. And then if we relate it again to what you're saying, like if you go to, let's just say a third world country or somewhere that's like unsafe, theoretically unsafe, it's like, I think gratitude can also bring a ton of humility, right? That like, we're seeing what's happening on this other side. And like, you are not better than those people, right? You got some sort of genetic lottery ticket that you were born into a first world country or into a wealthy family, a wealthy enough family that you have a house, or if you're watching this, you have internet connection, right? Yeah. What did you do to deserve that? Most of the time, nothing.
Yeah.
You were born into it. It's like, sure, we work hard and so we can buy the things, we can keep living this life. Great. Give yourself some, kudos for that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like, genetic lottery was hit.
Warren Buffett speaks about that.
Does he?
He says it. He actually specifically says, if he wasn't born in the US, in that little concentrated area of Omaha, where for some reason that there's a circle you could draw around the area where he was born and the people that interacted with investments over that time, he would not be anywhere near as successful. I think there's also another, I can't remember how many, I know the Americans love to do this, but they're like 9, 10, 11 figures. But, if you ask Mark Cuban, a lot of them say it's like it's luck.
Yeah.
Being born, first of all, in the right country gives you an advantage that you can't possibly imagine. If Warren Buffett was born in India, he would not even, I doubt we even know who he is.
Yeah. It's so true, right? And so I think that can bring a lot of humility instantaneously. And like, by being humble, here's another piece I like that I'll sort of pivot it to a little bit, is that through humility, we're more open to learning as well. This concept of, I don't know what I don't know, right? If you're walking around every day, a lot of teenagers do this. It's like, no, Mom, I know, right? They're not open to new information, right? They're already shutting themselves down. But if you can have some humility and say that, I'm pretty good, I'm maybe extremely good at certain things. I know a ton about certain things, but I know that I don't know the vast majority of the information in this world, in this universe, right? Now that'll bring us to be humble and open, and now that's going to lead you to being able to learn more education, more growth. And that's where I think that piece of actually like what Mark Cuban says, or Warren Buffett, of like, yeah, right, we win this genetic lottery, but then if we can be more humble and open to outside information, that's how we can be, we have a higher likelihood of letting these lucky moments hit us, and we're ready to accept it, right? Because if I'm walking around, it's like, no, I already know you can't provide anything, then I'm not going to be able to hear you and listen and be like, oh my goodness, he's busy presenting me with an opportunity that could eventually turn into me becoming a billionaire, right? And so stay humble, know that you don't know everything, be open to more information, to learning, and then more opportunities will present themselves to you.
By doing that as well, and staying grateful, I think there's the act of you mentioned gratitude, where if you make it a daily act of just listing out 3 or 4 or 5 things that you're grateful for, doesn't matter what it is, as small, as large as you want it to mean, it will make your life, and we speak about the before I die, but it will increase your life quality dramatically. Because your mind is focused on what you're grateful for, not what you don't have. It's a privilege problem. And that's how you overcome it. And like you say, stay humble is definitely one of the ways to do it.
Definitely. I think it's a social media problem also, right? We're comparing ourselves to others all the time. But so if we can come back and be grateful for what we have, it's been some years, I have a gratitude alarm that goes off every day. Right now it goes off at 3:27 p.m., which is the random time that I changed it to probably about a year ago. Okay. So it's about time that I change it again, because now I expect it, and like when it goes off, I just immediately click it, and sometimes I don't pause. But like, pause for 5-10 seconds every day right now, right as you're listening to this. Don't listen to the next 5 seconds. I'll be quiet. be grateful for your feet. Can you walk?
Yeah.
You have hands. Can you see? There's people in this world that don't have any of that, right? Quit comparing yourself to the person with a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Man, like if you can walk, let's go.
I mean, they say, the best way of looking at this is if you could take all of your crap, all of your problems in life and put it in a suitcase and put it in the middle of a room and everyone did that, I guarantee every single person will go back and grab their own suitcase and take it back with them.
Most of the time, for sure. Yeah. That's a good way to think about it.
But coming back to legacy, I actually would like to know. So the obituary is a great tool. I really love that one. What other things are important to you regarding legacy that you like to focus on?
I mean, the biggest one for me is really, it ties to emotion, which ties to me to communications. So I'm fortunate that I went to especially high school for communications, then I studied communications in college, and how we communicate with other people is how we essentially express our emotions, and that's how we build relationships a lot of the time, right? And so what happened to me, why it's so important, which I've told you a little bit, right, is that like after I had this like life-threatening accident, I fell off of a roof and was airlifted through a helicopter, and I woke up the next day with a neck brace and tubes down my throat. It made me realize that I wasn't not necessarily a very good person, but I wasn't the nicest person. I wasn't overly nice, overly positive. My emotions for myself and the emotions I invoked in others, how I communicated with others, really wasn't that great.
But that's quite profound. You woke up and your initial takeaway is to introspect and be like, man, that was almost the end of who I was. How they remembered me. Like, what was the thinking? How did we get there?
My dude, like it was, it wasn't like obviously the moment I wake up.
Yes, but I mean,
yeah, of course.
Talking about if you had to remember this experience.
Sure. Dude, this was like the scariest like moment of my entire life, actually, just to share this piece, is that when I woke up, so what had happened was we had been like out drinking the night before, and like I started to like not be able to remember the end of the night. And so it was literally one moment like we're in a bar, the next moment I'm in a hospital bed, just terrified. And either way, they keep you in this like sort of like medically induced state, like they keep you under, right, until like your friends or family or like support is there. And so right as I wake up is when my parents were walking in, and like my mom, the first question she asked me, I don't know if they told her to ask this or if she just did, but she asked me if I could wiggle my toes. And like, I just woke up, I'm like, where am I? What is happening here? When you have like tubes down your throat and like you've been unconscious, they actually strap your wrists to the bed because there's this like uncontrollable action to try and like rip everything out. So I wake up and I'm like strapped to the bed and tears just start pouring. And here comes my mom and she's like, can you wiggle your toes? And she's like, literally asking me if I can wiggle my toes. Am I paralyzed is like the question. And thankfully I could, right? I mean, there was a long recovery period, but I'm sitting here basically 100%. And so I think as I got out of the hospital is when it started to hit me, or like later in that day, of like, that literally could have been the end. The doctors told me that like if I hadn't been in like the physical health state that I had been at the time, like apparently like my muscles like held my skeleton, my bones in the same place. If I hadn't been like that healthy at that time, I would have either been paralyzed or I would have been dead. And so that's when I started to realize, like, you know what, I need to make some change happen. Like the first thing that started happening was I started reading like tons of personal development books, just like trying to learn, trying to grow. As far as like how I like started to get more in touch with my emotions and how I specifically communicated with people for the positive. Like before that, I already learned tons of stuff about communication, but it was more business and for my own interests.
For like a tool as opposed to
then almost a way of life. Yeah, there you go, nice. And so that's sort of how that like sort of pivot happened, and it really just changed my entire being.
Insane.
Yeah.
What actually happened? Like, did anyone ever tell you how or what issue? It sounds like you got hit by a car, or like a plane or something.
Yeah, you know? I mean, no, like I said, I fell off of a 2-story building. And
my goodness.
Yeah. So it was like summer. I was still in college. Okay. And every summer. Like we took like one class, and I was in this like little college town that was essentially a ghost town in the summer. And so we would all like go to one class, and then like the house that I lived in had a pretty flat roof. And so we would put like lawn chairs up there and like hang out and like, you know, shirtless, like we're tanning, like drinking a beer, like nothing crazy. And like we never went up there like seriously like drinking or like in the night. And so I don't know why we were up there, whose idea it was. And my friends think that the idea is that I fell asleep. Nobody saw me fall off. It's not like I was jumping up and down and doing anything super crazy.
Right.
They think that I fell asleep and then like rolled off because apparently they just heard me hit the ground. And yeah, not pretty. Yeah, definitely scary. Yeah.
When you were speaking about waking up, and like maybe this is probably maybe a few days afterwards, you're kind of reflecting on what happened, and you think about the life that you've lived, and then you usually starting the personal development. I remember I had a similar experience, but mine was an existential crisis as opposed to a physical one. And it happened to me after I got back from not making the football trials at like these professional clubs in Europe I was trying to trial at. And they basically told me, look, you're good. You'll definitely make it in the 3rd or 4th division, but you're not making it pro. And I specifically remember him saying, look, in this team here today, which is a youth team for like, it was one of the Premier League clubs, but it was in Germany. He's like, who do I think is the best player? And I said, look, this guy, absolutely, there's no doubt this is the best player here. And he's like, not one of these guys are good enough to make it into Premier League. And I've been keeping an eye on it ever since, and none of them have. None of them made it. So there's definitely a level of exceptionalism that you just need to be so good. So that moment I came back, and I remember I was 17, and I had a existential crisis about who I was as a person. Like maybe an identity crisis is a better way to put it.
Sure.
And I fortunately came across a guy called Robin Sharma, who was also, he's a motivational speaker, and he kind of speaks a lot about potential and living life to its fullest and how to get the best out of life and ideating, visualization, those kind of things. But he also teaches, very similar to what you do, where you guys teach executives how to live a more fulfilled life. Because often what happens is that you find people that are very successful, but they're one-dimensional.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on the topic of what he was saying, and this is also a huge motivator for me, if you think about a cemetery, how many good ideas are currently lying down in a cemetery? And that kind of ties into the idea of leaving a legacy and making sure you actually act and do and try things and live a fulfilled life, whatever that may mean to you as a person.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that as you were saying, that was coming back to me. I was remembering that moment when he told me that story.
Well, I was curious with the existential crisis that you went through, right? If you can think back, what did you do, or how did you deal with this realization of like, I'm not going to be pro?
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
It was very difficult because I spent every minute with this goal in mind. I'd wake up way before anyone. I'd train, and then I'd go to school, and I come back and I'm training the rest of the day. And during school, I'm just thinking about it and I'm visualizing, and I was obsessed. And I did that for years. So when I got back and now that I think about, look, I'm only 17, my whole life is still there to live. What am I going to do? I don't want to say I was in a state of deep depression, because I was obviously depressed, but I was kind of questioning what life was going to look like. And I wasn't going to reach what I thought was my potential. And it was actually quite a blessing. The blessing was the fact that our school had this really, it was like this really odd, they somehow were gifted a ticket to Robin Sharma's event.
Okay.
It was so unusual.
Oh, wow.
And I was a prefect, which is like, I don't know what they call them in the US or in the UK, but I was like a student body representative.
Okay,
and like you had them, and for some reason they said they had 10 tickets and all of the student body, or all of the prefects can go together and they can go watch. Nice. And the school was like, look, I mean, we have this, but look, no one's going to go. Sounds ridiculous. And I'm like, you know what? That sounds like something I want to do. And I remember getting there and he just saying everything that I've always thought about how you can be more than you are. And like, you know, because oftentimes when you have individuals that have this need to do something big and they feel like they can do it and they can make a difference, you know, most people don't think like that. But when you hear from someone who says, you know, it's okay to think like that, and there are people like that out there, it just validated so many of the feelings I've always had that I was tying to football, but now I can also tie to something like making a difference in people's lives, which is through our business and
Absolutely.
trying to help people. And
Yeah.
when that opened up, it was like a switch. Nice. And I was a different person.
What a blessing, man. Look at that, right? Like in the timing of those things, like I don't believe anything happens by coincidence. More and more I hear people saying that like they truly believe that everything happens for a reason, which is great, right? And so who knows if you hadn't been told the fact that you'll never play pro, if you hadn't gone into this depressed state where you were essentially grieving a loss, right?
That's what it felt like.
You were grieving the loss of like what you believed your future was going to be, like the loss of yourself almost.
And I mean, to put it into context, till today, this has been, I don't know how many, 15 years since, and I still can't watch football on TV because it's still, I still have that, I don't know if it's like PTSD or trauma that's associated. I still can't watch it. I don't even play it. It literally felt like someone died. That's how it feels to me. Even though now I'm a lot better with it, but like I still can't do those things.
That's tough, man. Like, that's something that, I can't imagine. And like, it's not something that, it's hard, right? Something you got to learn to sort of live with. But now it's great to hear you said the words, right? That like you're grateful for it. It was actually a blessing that steered you in the direction that you are today, right? The direction that you're going today, and you're making a huge difference in people's lives more and more, right? Both personally and professionally. And so what more can we ask for?
It's true. And I can truly say that I really love how things have panned out. And these are the things I hope people kind of get from this conversation as well. When we speak about thinking about your mortality and before I die, is that keeping an ear out to what's going on in life, because every now and again you get this pull, and that day is an example of I just by accident heard the principal say they've got these tickets for the prefects. But they probably weren't going to go. I just heard it. And like, it was this part of me that pulled me towards it. No, that sounds interesting. Nice. And it's listening to that and making the action of going back, you know what, can we do this? And can I organize this? And like, I think we as humans, we constantly have these things that pull us in a direction that kind of meets our destiny or fate or like things that who you want to be. And once you try to listen to those little nudges.
Dude, we have to listen to them. I'll share like one more story with you is that, after high school, I graduated, or after college, my first job, I was a door-to-door salesman. And it was not easy at all. It was door-to-door for business to business. So I would walk into...
Tough. That's very tough.
I would literally get like an area code in a neighborhood or a city and say like, okay, go walk into every single business. Don't look who's in the inside, do no research, walk in and try and sell them. I was selling cell phone services at the time. And man, I got yelled at and thrown out. And I had the cops called on me one time. I'm like, I have like an ID. Like, I'm like, this is my job, I promise. I'm getting the cops called on me for doing my job. Man, there were days where I'm like crying in my car. It was like this depression and anxiety state that like how you say, man, it's like, I wasn't necessarily grieving anything, but like, man, it was a low. And like looking back now, I'm like so grateful for it. Like I got out of that. Like I got turned towards mindfulness, meditation, and like got me out of that. Like I got turned more towards like exercise and taking care of my physical health and helped me get out of that. And it's just like for a reason. And like even after that, like my next job, I was totally unjustly fired from this job. Like I thought I was like crushing it, doing everything great. I was there for 1 month and they bring me in. I'd literally been at work on Saturday. Like it was a regular full-time job. I did not need to be there on the Saturday. Been there just hustling, doing as much as I can. Monday morning I come in and they bring me into the HR office and they're just like, we're sorry, but you're fired. You didn't do anything wrong, but for what we think this position is going to turn into, you probably won't be ready. They're like, you did nothing wrong. What we think the position is going to turn into, probably. It's like, and yet I still got fired. And that's like when my pivot happened towards entrepreneurship for where I'm sitting here today. And so like, it's tough to see like when we're in our darkest times. Like those are two of my really darkest, like toughest times that I've been through. But always when we look back, we can see like those things happen for a reason, right? They put us where we are today. And so if you're going through it now, just know that your future self is going to be thankful for it, right? This pivot had to happen for a reason.
It's temporary.
It's temporary.
I heard Robert De Niro speak about this. Okay. And he was in a circle with a whole bunch of other very famous actors. And he said, you need to know that when things are great, and things are going, and you think you're swimming in it and you are God's gift to mankind, that's temporary. Nice.
Nice.
But when things are bad, also know that it's temporary. And, you hear obviously someone like one of the greatest actors say that. You think, they also, it clearly impacts anyone at any level of success, at any level of life, that you're going to have the good and the bad, but it's all temporary.
So good, man. So good, right? That's why, like, when you're scrolling through social media and seeing, oh man, these people's lives are so amazing, right? Yeah, well, that thing that you're seeing right there, that's also just temporary,
Yeah.
right? They're going through good, they're going through bad. We all do, and like you said, it's all temporary, the good and the bad. And so we should just appreciate them both and know that they're pushing us farther into the life that, like, we're meant to live, huh?
So to kind of bring this to a close here, let me actually push the exercise that you gave me back onto you and ask you, when it comes to legacy and your role in how you're trying to impact people and their legacies, what does it look like for you going forward?
Oh man, dude. It's funny because what does it look like for me going forward? I'll definitely, I'll answer your question, but I focus on my day-to-day more than I focus on the end, right? People are like, oh, what's your 5-year plan? I'm like, I got really no clue where I'm going to be in 5 years. I know what I'm doing today. I'm taking the actions today. Like, I heard somebody say one time, I focus on the leading indicators versus the lagging indicators. So what am I doing today that will equal this lag of success and happiness and all that stuff? And so for me, man, my legacy that I want to leave is to help other people leave legacies on this world. And those legacies that I keep talking about, like, stem around how we make people feel, like the emotions. And so that's the same for me, right? It's going to be a legacy that I inspired people to be more positive, to be more grateful, to have more hope for themselves and the future and the world. Honestly, man, there's so much like negativity in this world. There's so much like fear mongering in this world. Why? How does that help anything, right? Instead, like, think towards the positive. Like, if you think that it could go bad, well, hey, check this out. It could go good. It could go really, really well. And so, like, that's what I'm working to do, is to help people more see the good side of life and, like, take the actions to make the good side happen versus just looking at the bad. And, through that, I think there's going to be a really great ripple effect that happens in life. Like I mentioned earlier, it's like I smile at strangers on the sidewalk. Like, I give compliments to people, like, all the time. Like, even just like small things. It doesn't need to be anything big. Because, like, that's going to ripple through their lives into other people. And so, like, even, like, outside of business and money, right? That's where I think, like, makes the biggest impact. And so that's the legacy that I'm working to leave on this world.
Well, I think that's lovely. And I'm going to keep a keen eye, because I think it's going to be interesting to watch as this develops further.
Definitely.
Well, Wayne, thanks a lot.
I appreciate it, Margaret. Thank you, man.
Let's hope that this inspires others to leave a better legacy.
Absolutely.
No, better yet, to start leaving a better legacy now.
Absolutely, right? The legacy and the whole journey is today.